can have the sexiest deck, you can have the sexiest logos, you can have all the influencers pushing your brand, but if the work you do is shitty, right? It's just putting makeup over a pig, right?
If you're able to mirror those two, clean and clear messaging and very good imagery and visuals, right, that do less, not more, I think you'd be able to nail your brand. So if you look at some of the biggest companies in the world, I was even looking at Warren Buffett's website. It's horrible, 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 horrible. But he just shares about 2 paragraphs of what exactly he does. It goes straight to the point, and it works.
Okay, so the first speaker of the day is Olumide Soyombo, and then I'm literally going to read this profile because there was no way I was going to cram this. Olumide is a prominent angel investor and the co-founder of Blue Chip Technologies, with over a decade of experience in entrepreneurship, tech, and venture capital, and more. From what I saw, Olumide has invested in well-known startups, including Paystack, making him a key figure in the African startup ecosystem. He continues to mentor and support founders in scaling their businesses. He's also the author of Vantage, an autobiographical book, I got that, describing his personal and business story. So he'll be joining us today to tell us about the power of branding and how that can help you raise the investor checks. So we're doing this in a fireside chat style. I will be asking a couple of questions, but before we get started, Olumide, do you want to say a few words to the audience?
Hi, it's good to spend some of my Saturday gisting. I think we should, the format and the reason why I wanted us to have a fireside chat is, I mean, there are so many things that when people give keynotes that they present with, right? But those are not the things they do. So it's very easy to present and say the things and the nice things to an audience, but those are not the things that they do in real life. So we'll keep it real, I'll keep it honest, and we'll just spend the Saturday gisting.
Awesome. I really like that. Thank you. So anybody that's not here is missing out on the real stuff. So let's get to the first question. Serious question. We're here for serious stuff. Nobody wants to hear what's not real. Okay. So what would you say are the basics, or like, is there like a winning formula? What's that formula? I've forgotten now. The X equals Y plus all those, stuff. What's the winning formula for like branding for startups, especially in the African tech space? Is there a winning formula? And if there is, almighty formula. And if there is, what is that formula?
I think for me, especially for an early stage startup, right? The branding, I would say, is you, right? The self-brand, right? It starts with you and it starts with the entrepreneur. And when I mean the branding starts with you, it comes down to mean, what are you known for, right? What is your reputation? You first, because people buy from people first. People invest in people, right? It just happens that this person now runs a business, but it still comes down to the person first. So especially in the very, very early stage, the reputation of the entrepreneur transfers to the company. I remember when we first started out Blue Chip in 2008, I'd gotten a call from a friend who said, hey, there's some guys in VI, they're looking for a business intelligence company. And that was what Blue Chip was set up to do. This was our first month in business. And there was a lot of traffic leaving from Unicon. Myself and my partner Kazim, who used to be the head of data warehouse in MTN, and had resigned, and in Accenture, and had resigned for us to start Blue Chip together. We jumped on an Okada, and we got straight to VI. And as we got to VI, the people who were meant to meet said, hey, okay, you come in for the interview, Kazim, stay outside. And it turned out that they were actually interviewing someone for a role. They were looking for a staff to hire. And I was like, no, we are here to sell. We are here to sell services. And that's my partner outside. They should call him in. And we started talking about Blue Chip, but remember, Blue Chip was just a month old, so we didn't have any reference sites. But we kept on saying the consultants at Blue Chip had worked in MTN, had worked in Accenture, had worked at the NHS. So we transferred the work that we had done and what we were known for to the company. And we ended up saying, we can outsource one of our resources to you, and you would have the backing of a company behind this resource. We didn't have any resource. So over the weekend, we hired somebody, prepped him up, and we shipped him to that company. And that was really our first deal for 454,000 naira or something like that. So we were able to transfer the credibility of the founders, right, and put that in the company. So for an entrepreneur starting out, the role of branding starts with you. It starts with what you are known for, what reputation do you have, what domain expertise do you have, what skill sets do you have that can then be transferred into the company, that can then be transferred to the company and then becomes part of the reputation and brand that the company has, especially in the very early stage.
Interesting. So at what point does it go beyond just your brand, your reputation? Is there a number? Is it a number of months or an amount that you've made or traction that you've gotten?
I think it slowly evolves, right? It then becomes, and that's why the early employees also form that part of brand. That's why you see brand and culture sometimes even using the same phrases, because it then evolves from a group of people to the ethos of the company and what the company stands for, and then subsequently then becomes what does this company do, right? What is this company known for? Okay, you go to a POS today and you use a MoneyPoint POS. I can talk about them since they're one of their first investors, and they are known for something. Oh, MoneyPoint, no, they fail, right? And the same way it works on the flip side. There are some cards, there are some bank cards that you carry to ShopRite or you carry to a merchant. They'll say, I no bring this card here, you no go work, right? And all that stems from the work that people are doing at the background, right? The hard work that you don't see that then becomes the company's reputation for something, good or bad anyway.
That's so interesting. So as an angel investor, would you say your own reputation as well also impacts that of maybe a company that you're investing in or a business that you're investing in?
Oh, 100%, right? And I always say it's a two-way street when people are raising money. People tend to think, the investor I'm not doing you a favor, right? And you're not doing me a favor either. There's exchange of value, right? And so there is founders, especially founders who have something of value, who are building a business that they think is going to be worth building or is worth building at the end. You're not giving out free equity, right? You're also interviewing the investor. So you're asking other founders who have taken money from this investor, that what can this investor help me with? Or this investor can help you in opening doors, or this investor would open doors to other investors. So because of what the investor has done. So there are some people who the round is closed, but they open it up to me just because they feel that if Olumide is on the cap table, many other investors would come because of the kind of work that my brand has done in the past, right? So the ecosystem is big, but the ecosystem is also small in the sense that people talk. I remember in the early days when people like Hotels or NG will $1.2 million round was a Series A round, right? There were not many people writing checks in the market, and people were getting away with giving founders wicked deals. But today, those people don't see any deals anymore, right? Because also founders talk and investors talk.
That's so interesting. It sounds like a music label deal, the way you just described it. Okay, so let's go back to like the beginning. As someone, let's say I'm a founder and I'm trying to put together some kind of deck or some kind of explanation of what I do, what my business does, what we're trying to do. And I'm reaching out to people who I think have money and want to give me money and are interested in what my business, where my business can get to. How important would you say a pitch deck or even just the pitch is in raising money?
I mean, I have an unconventional approach. I mean, I would look at your deck, but I throw everything in the deck away because most things in that deck would not happen, right? You would say you want to grow 10% month on month, 50% month on month, bullshit. Most of those things will not happen. So why are we discussing things that will not happen? What I want to see in a pitch, not necessarily in a pitch deck, is the clarity of your thinking process, is talking to you as the founder, right? To understand the kind of person this founder is. What has this founder done? Why is this founder building this business? If you even look at some of the key items in the pitch deck, right? Total addressable market and so on, many people miss it, right? If you go back and look at many companies that we've found, we've gone ahead to back, right? Maybe 1 in 10 would have gotten that total addressable market slide correctly, right? Because it's really
like
not. It's really not what you think it is until the only way to know most times is to do anyway. So yes, the pitch deck for me is a canvas for you to pour your thoughts in on how you're thinking about the business and what the possible opportunity is. But there are companies I've invested in that didn't share a pitch deck with me, that we just had a couple of conversations. But that doesn't mean to say, that does not take away the fact that the pitch deck is a necessary tool in today's venture market, because not everybody has the same approach. And you can't obviously the pitch deck helps you be in more than one place, right? Because then your pitch deck speaks for you in your absence, right? So it then has to capture your thinking process and your why clearly. And then you can then, when you then have an opportunity to get a conversation, you can then explain certain key items that are not necessarily even represented in that pitch deck.
Okay, so is it possible to overcome a bad reputation? So she said, your branding is about you, your reputation, your domain expertise. Is it possible to overcome a bad reputation with a good pitch deck or a good pitch or a good idea?
Well, not for me, right? But I think in yesterday's environment, when I mean yesterday's environment, the zero interest rates timing, right, where everybody and their dog and their auntie was raising, there was a lot of FOMO in the market, right? Where an interesting deck or even a founder who's a jerk would still raise because everybody is chasing that startup with money. And then you find yourself backing someone you shouldn't have backed in the first place just because the deal is a hot deal. And those people end up with their hands burned. For me, every time I've looked over the reputation of a founder, what you have, it's just when you're investing and you're looking to back a company, there are many voices in your head, right? And when I've overlooked that voice that is saying, this guy is a jerk, right? I've gotten my hands burnt. So I listen to those voices. And reputation matters, right? People that say it's business, it's not personal, fail to understand that businesses thrive on relationships, and the best relationships are personal.
That's so interesting. Okay, so whose voices do you listen to then? This is a little bit, can just give us a tip. Whose voices do you listen to? Are there some people who they tell you, yeah, we're going with this guy? You don't see the names, but who they are to you. Is it your wife? Is it somebody you
What do you mean?
with?
No, I'm saying the voices are in my head, not real people.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so it's not necessarily about maybe a bad experience you might have had maybe in a previous workplace. Is that something that you take into account?
Or with the person? Or
yeah,
what do you
so
mean?
if the founder coming to you and you're doing your background investigation, and maybe one of your egbons tells you that, oh, I know that this guy used to work at XYZ place and I was told that he left on a bad note. Does that impact how you make your decisions?
I mean, it is an input because you reference check people, right? It's just like you want to hire a chef and you hear that he poisoned his last employer, right? You're not going to hire that person.
Yeah.
So I mean, it depends on what it is. It depends on the context, and you ask the founder about certain things like that. But many times when there are many things blocking a deal, right, and you still push on through. Even though the person is a jerk, like I said, I've gotten my hands burnt many of those things. In few of those instances, when that has happened.
Okay, so let's look at more mature like businesses. What would you say makes a brand strong that you say, okay, let me put more money into this business?
I think it's what the brand is known for. Right, the work that the company does, right? So you can have the sexiest deck, you can have the sexiest logos, you can have all the influencers pushing your brand, but if the work you do is shitty, right, it's just putting makeup over a pig, right? Because you're still a pig at the end of the day. Not doing the right thing. So for me, it's the work that you do, right? If it comes back to the examples I was giving of money point with reliability, paystack with speed and reliability, and you setting brands that are known for those kind of things. No matter, that then becomes what people talk about, right? And then that helps the perception of the company and the perception of that brand in the market. And that then increases the appetite of investors, right? When they see that, oh no, like when investors in late stage companies are looking at the brand, they do research, right? They go to the field. They talk to the agents if you're a POS type businesses. They talk to what do people think about your market? What do people say about you, right? What do your customers say about you? In due diligence, in the late stage companies, they'll speak to your merchants, they'll speak to your customers, they'll speak to your partners, right? To understand what do the brands think about you, what do other people think about you, not just what you are saying you are doing. And that's where the work that you do becomes very, very important, and what you are then known for. So for me, it's the work that you do is the single most important thing in how your brand will be perceived.
So that's
what you are known for.
Yeah. So do you think that it always translates that the work that is done is what is actually seen outside? Like the amount of work being put in is the impact that's seen out there?
Of course not, right? We wish it was so. Right? You're doing all the hard things, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that the result will come eventually, because sometimes it doesn't. That's the truth. But you hope that it would, and over time, most times it would, right? If you keep stabbing at it. And when it's not, then you go back to the drawing table to find out, okay, why is this not resonating, right? Why are these efforts that we're putting in at the back end not showing up at the end of everything, and then you walk back and see where things are going wrong. So for me, it's doing that audit to understand why that is not shown. But I'm saying if everybody's pulling in the same direction, eventually that kind of effort shows, right? It usually starts very, very small, right? It's sometimes when you think about, you look back at it, you don't even understand some of the growth that has happened. But when you take a step back and you look, I saw what Seye tweeted recently about this end wage access product, right? It started with what, a few hundreds of thousands, and today doing several millions. You would not have thought that. You would not have thought about how big it could go. And when you look back, that you can then see, oh, the effort of one engineer writing this line of code every day, or another person building out this product feature. This is what it has ended up to. But that person sees it, oh, I just wrote this line of code. You didn't just write a line of code. It's become something impactful. And that's really what you want to see at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's very true. So making this conversation a bit more relatable, I think I mentioned there were like 2 case studies I wanted us to focus on a little bit, but I mean, you have flexibility to deviate. But one is Bolt, and one thing I wanted us to examine is how Bolt basically try to localize their brand identities to the various markets that they entered or that they went into. How important would you say that is for an organization, for a business like Bolt? Do you think it's something that's very industry specific, or is it something that every brand or business has to do?
I think it's important, and it's one of the most important things you would actually set out to do as a company in terms of your mission and that objective, right? And the first thing is, what do I want to be known for, right? First as a person and then as a company. What is the one thing that I want people to talk about when they mention this company, right? Is it speed? Is it impact? Is it whatever it is? Or what are the top 2 things I want this company to be known for? And then you have that as on the top line. And then, okay, what are the things I need to do? And what are the things that different people in the company need to do for us to get to that position? And then what are the things that our marketing and branding teams need to do to amplify that story? And I think once you have set that objective, it then becomes doing the hard things that are required to meet that. So Bolt will say, okay, they want convenience, speed, and cost. Or how do I achieve that low cost, right? There are many things behind that needs to be done. Kind of people you hire, where you situate them, where you source from, all those things are now the hard things that are then required to achieve that. But it all starts from, what do you want to be known for? So I think every brand or every company needs to ask themselves that, what is it I want to be known for? What are the things I want to be known for first? And then build around getting to that point, which is what Bolt did.
Okay, so I'll be asking my chat to share will be around with Olumide will be around with one more question. So Tunta, please get ready to ask the audience questions that we already have. But if anyone listening here has any questions, please drop them in the chat so that we can take them in order. So final question for you, Olumide, from me. Another case study that I highlighted is Andela. And for me, one thing that stuck out was the storytelling. So yeah. So what would you say that impact was for Andela? Is that, again, something that's very specific, very niche to that kind of business? Or is it something that every business has to take into account?
That's a very interesting one, because the story resonated, right? And it was a story of impact and while making profit, right? And that resonated well. But the interesting part about storytelling, or about brands and the story around brands, is sometimes is the users and your customers that then frame the narrative. And if it's a good narrative, you amplify. So if you look at the PiggyVest story today, it's almost, if somebody says something about PiggyVest doesn't need to go and say anything. It's other users that would come and jump on it. Or there is the whole theme about check your girlfriend's PiggyVest account, or check your wife's PiggyVest account, even though she says she doesn't have money. And the Piggyverse team never sat down one day to say, this is what we're going to be known for, right? Or this is what we were building for. But the use in the market, the narrative that that was what it was, they then amplified it subtly, and they amplified it even loudly in certain places, and then it's now become what the company is seen as, right? So the storytelling is very, very important because nobody will tell you this. If you don't tell your story the way you want it to be told, people will tell it for you, and they might not tell it how you want to tell it. So the storytelling has to make sense. And if you think about many impactful companies, right? There's some storytelling on their why, on why they decided to go here, or how they even decided to build this. And speaking to investors, it resonates, right? You're talking to a founder who's building a playground or a tool for autistic children because they have an autistic child, right? It resonates, right? Because you understand their why, and you understand the weight of their why, right? And that resonates. So yes, storytelling is very, very important, and because it tells you why.
Interesting. Is there one more brand or one more business that you would like to highlight that you think their storytelling has really stood out for you?
Okay, let me think of an early stage company that I liked, where I saw a pitch deck first, and then how they went about launching and telling their story was Fullgap with Victor. But then that's Victor's job, right? So
yes.
I think the first page on his deck was a company, $2 billion company called Honest or something, and he said they are laughing, and they were laughing in the picture. He said they are laughing in this picture. They don't know they're about to be disrupted, and then he starts telling his story and why he's building what he's building from there. And they engaged the community to launch. They were respected in the community. And they leverage that community in launching. So yeah, I like that about them.
Interesting. Yeah. So like you said, that's Victor's job. I think every time I've seen him mentioned, it's always like he comes with a different twist that you just haven't come across before. It's always really interesting. So we'll get to the questions now. We have a couple of questions that were sent in from people at the point of registration. Tunes, are you ready to go with that now? I think we can go with question 2.
Hi, yes, I am. Okay, so question 2. Our startup recently underwent a rebranding, everything from our website to our social media voice to our brand visuals, because investors felt we weren't clear enough about our value proposition. Now that we've pivoted our brand, how do we communicate this change to previous investors who rejected us, and is it worth going back to them?
I'm not sure it's about your branding. Before it comes to your branding, I think for me it's what's your value proposition can be on your website. Yes, all well and good, but how have you communicated that value proposition to that investor, right? So I think it comes first with yes, you could have done all the. I'm not investing in you by going to your TikTok page or your LinkedIn page first. I'm investing in you by listening to you first, right? So I think what needs to be clear and what is worth doing is having a conversation again with an investor with a clear communication of what your value proposition is, not necessarily what is going to be on your website or whatever, right? That's secondary. The key thing first is what has your value proposition changed from what the investor was looking at before, or is there any new direction in doing that? And then the key thing, right, to shut an investor up, but to convince any investor is growth, right, and is doing. So their companies have passed on, but they've kept me abreast of their endeavors, of their their actions, right? And they kept me abreast of in updates, right? And kept me in their updates emails. And I'd seen that growth, and I was like, oh, okay. There's something here that I didn't see, or there's something here that I missed, or they've made a new directional change based on some feedback you gave them, and you can now see the growth, and then you're going to head back to invest in them. So I think what that founder needs to do is to execute whatever new value proposition they're on, and share those updates as they execute that value proposition.
Interesting. Thank you. So one more question, so that we can take the third question. You're
Third
muted.
question. We've built a recognizable health tech brand, but some potential investors are questioning our valuation, saying it's too high for our current revenue. How do we use the strength of our brand to justify our valuation during fundraising discussions, especially when the numbers aren't as strong yet?
You don't. You go and do the work, right? That's the answer. I don't have anything else to add. Branding will not help you.
Okay, well, sorry. Any other tips? Anything else more that they can do?
I just want to say that person to ask a founder the question, not an investor.
Okay, so they should enter your DMs. Shay.
I'm on the side of the investor.
So to whoever sent in that question, enter Shay's DMs or Sydney's DMs so that they can tell us the secrets. All right, thank you so much, Olumide. That has been really great. We've overshot the time by about 4 minutes, but does anyone else in the audience here have any final questions for Olumide? You can go ahead and speak. Don't ask like 3-part questions. Any final questions? No. Okay. So thank you so much, Olumide, for your time. If you still have time, you can stick around. If any other question. Oh, someone's hand is up. Ugochukwu Nwoke, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Olumide. Sir, I wanted to ask, so our startup is just comprises of just three fresh graduates with limited experience in the market and all. How do we okay then we built our MVP about to launch, fine and good, but I would say looking for investors would be an issue for us because we don't have like that large number of years of experience. So how do we go about that area?
Well done, Ugochukwu, and congrats on daring to build, right? As fresh graduates, is very commendable. And then even further kudos to you guys for going ahead to build an MVP, right? That tells me, as an investor talking to you, that tells me you're willing to sacrifice. That tells me that you're daring to build. I mean, you could have brushed up your CV and applied to any company to work, but you made that sacrifice to decide to build, and that counts for something for me as an investor. And your years of experience, yes, investors want to see expertise, or one, if it's not domain expertise, it's a different worldview, right, about a problem. So I'm guessing that whatever you are building, you have seen a key problem statement, right, that you think you can address, and your MVP is doing that or is trying to do that. And like I said, you don't have to. Mark Zuckerberg was not a social media expert, was he? Right? Elon didn't know anything initially about building electrical cars, right? But they had a thesis, right? That they had in their head and felt that this thesis could be interesting. So for me, it's what's the strength of your thesis that you're building, and do you have the tools? And you're already showing that you have the tools by building out an MVP. What is the acceptance of that MVP in the market? Those are the kind of things that investor would also like to see. So well done.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Olumide. Thank you, Ugochukwu, for asking that question. If anyone still has any questions, and maybe if you're a bit shy to ask, you can send it to our DMs on Twitter, and Kella will pick it up from there. Okay, and then Olumide has also dropped his email address in the chat. Okay, so thank you so much. We're running up Olumide's time now, and then going on to the next victim, Seye. Seye, from your Twitter, I feel like I know you. I feel like you're my older brother. So please allow me to take some liberties here. Does that happen? Do you feel like that happens based on like in recent times?
I think so. I'm very personal in my outward communication, so people feel like they know this guy.
Yeah.
Right?
And maybe was that your plan all along, based on what Olumide is saying? Like people want to feel like
I think I'm compensating for something by doing that, but I'll talk about it later.
Okay. Okay, so let me introduce Seye formally. Seye is the CEO and co-founder of PaidHR, a groundbreaking, if I might say so myself, a groundbreaking HR and payroll management platform that has successfully transformed its brand to attract investors and establish itself as a leading player in the industry. His rebranding journey with PaidHR serves as a powerful case study for us on how we can revitalize a company's image and open doors to new opportunities. You might know PaidHR as Pade. I don't want to say Pade, but I don't want Seye to just end this call and leave. Because I know it doesn't like that from what I've seen. So from paid to PaidHR, well, paid in a Yoruba way, in a Yoruba spelling. All right, so Seye, thank you so much for joining us today. Actually, I think I should have clarified this from you. I know that Ore has a deck. Is that what you're going to be sharing now, or do you want me to just go ahead and ask the questions? Do you want to speak first?
I don't have a deck. Ore will share the deck. I'm just going to speak.
Okay. So should I let you go ahead and speak, or do you want me to go ahead with my questions?
No, ask me your questions.
Okay, but I feel like I'm going to now box you in. Please tell us more about Paid. Please tell us more about PaidHR.
I mean, Pade. So the real story behind Pade is that, people see us as a HR tech company, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why the name of the company was even Pade, or, the PAD spelling, was because the first domain name we tried to get was paid.com. This was back in 2019 or 2020. So I wanted to put a little bit of an angle to the discussions around branding and startups, right? First of all, the branding is not really, don't think of it as having a role to play in fundraising. People think about fundraising as, the North Pole or North Star when you are building a company. The real job you have is to build the actual company. Fundraising is one of the events that happens when you are building a company. So your brand is part of your vision, right? However, you are able to now execute that vision to actualize the reality of your brand is up to you as an operator, the founders of the company, and everybody who is going to work in that organization. So we already knew that we had a big role to play in payments and payroll. That's why the first domain name that we tried to acquire was paid.com. But it was going to cost us $30,000 in 2020, and we didn't even have that kind of money. Even till today, I'm not going to spend the $30K on a brand name. So we started to try variations of what was available. And after a while, we came up with PAD. And to me and Lekon, it sounded like paid, right? So, and then we put the HCM at the back, because the resource that we were going to leverage for building out a HR and payroll company was people, right? Human capital, which is Africa's largest, most, inexhaustible resource. So HCM means human capital management. So it was paid HCM. So it was supposed to be payments and people. You get what I mean? That was the idea. It was payments, people, HR, and stuff like that. So as time went on, we started to, now our job was to, first of all, build out the HR tech base, because that is where the the primary customer. So today we have primary and secondary customers. The primary customer is companies who employ people, right? Remember, people is the things that we people is the resource that we wanted to build for. So businesses or companies employ people. So we have to first of all build software for the businesses. So the first 2.5 years or 3 years now was us perfecting the HR technology side. Now, was it a crowded market? Yes. But we had to get through that crowded market to execute our vision, which is why, you know, things like storytelling, you know, just being very open about the journey. A lot of people, except the people who have invested in us, did not really figure out where we were going. It was like, oh, okay, just another HR payroll company, right? One of my founder friends said that to me a few weeks ago on a call, and he said, "Seye, I'll be honest with you, when you guys founded your company, everybody was like, these guys are not going to make it because a lot of people are doing payroll already." But we saw that as a means to an end. So it's a HR tech company in the front, but a lot of financial technology at the back. And you'll become more visible with the things that Ora is going to share with you. So yeah, thank you. So basically, the role of branding is deep into your vision. When you visualize what you want to build and the company you are going to create, right? Branding is already part of it. Even me talking about the journey and writing tweets all the time is all part of the branding, to be honest. We want to appear as a company that is relatable. HR companies have always been very straitjacket, very formal. I'm not active on LinkedIn. Can you imagine? HR company that is founder that is not active on LinkedIn. I detest LinkedIn because I don't think it's real. So I prefer real communication, real life experiences, talking to people about how you build your company. Every time I explain what End-Wage Access does, I meet a new person who says, "Oh my God, this makes so much sense," despite how much we've spoken about it in the past. So that's really what PaidHR is. And now coming to how we came up with the name or moved to PaidHR, which we are going to run with for as long as we can. So we have enough money to maybe acquire Paid.com. Yeah, as we began to get to the people side of the business, right? We've built out a proper HR tech base that can compete with anyone in the world, really, continent, world, maybe. And now we are getting to the part where we are rolling out our people solutions. End-Wage Access was our first people directly serving the people or the employee part of our customers product that we rolled out, but there's more that we're rolling out in the next couple of weeks or months. So we decided to go with a brand that is easy to understand from day one. That's another thing that your brand, and I think Olumide also touched on it as well, because at the end of the day, your brand becomes what you do and what you are known for. And if you present a confusing name or a confusing what's it called? Yeah, name, you have a lot of work to do. First of all, you have to spend money to kind of connect your brand name to what it does. This business is called Kia or whatever, right? And Kia is probably, as I made the example of Kia, it sounds like a logistics startup, right? So
it does.
Exactly. So imagine if Kia was a supply chain brand, right? You have to first of all spend a lot of your limited marketing budget to define yourself in the market before people now understand what you do. So we wanted to go forward with a name that was easy to understand. When you hear PaidHR now, at least something talks about payments there, and then there's HR right there. So it's impossible to miss at this point, I hope, because it cost me a lot of money.
Yeah, there would still be one or two people that are like, what do you guys do? Are you in law? Are you to law? Okay, interesting. So let's take it back to like your mindset in 2019, right? Did you understand how important your personal brand, your personal reputation was for you to like establish PaidHR?
I mean, for early stage companies, especially, you know, I think Olumide also mentioned it, that the company is you at that very early stage. That's you. Even when you are going to attract investors in early stage companies, the investment is in you, the founder, most of the time, right? Oh, okay, this guy he has said he wants to do this. I think he has the capacity to do it. I'm going to invest. So the investment usually is in. That's why when startups pivot or whatever, the investors, most of the time, if they are doing a good job, the investors will say, we are going to back even that as well, even though that's not what you set out to do. So and Pade is not my first attempt at entrepreneurship, right? I've been an entrepreneur since I was in university. I had a publishing business. I did a couple startups before we got to Pade. So my personality has always been the way it is, right? I like to talk about what I do because I believe the opportunity is everywhere. So it's not like I sat down and planned that, oh, okay, I'm going to be very open with my communication. I'm going to be relatable in what I do. I'm going to show the building and, build in public, as people call it. It was just personality. That was me. And the real, reason why I think we are going to make it is not just a me thing. Is because of the dynamic relationship between myself and my co-founder. Because he's the real guy. I'm just the guy that talks a lot.
Oh, you say he's the real guy, so you're the AI or what? Oh my god, that's so funny. Okay, so I have a follow-up question to that. Are there any, so since you didn't have a plan, are there any mistakes? And that's not saying that I'm not saying you were just going around without a plan, but in terms of your branding, right? You didn't have a specific plan. You didn't say, I'm going to only be saying these kind of words, going to have fun there, blah, blah, blah. Are there any mistakes you feel that you made there that may have impacted you in terms of fundraising, in terms of even your culture in your organization? And what are those mistakes and how did you overcome them?
I mean, the first mistake was thinking that people will see PAD and call it Pade, right? Everybody called it Pade. So,
I can't imagine how frustrating.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my time, even it's PAD, those are English letters, right? So I expected even foreigners to see it and say Pade. But because of the Africa element, everybody, even British people, American people will call it Pade. I was like, okay, you know what? We're going to have to change this name. So mistakes with respect to fundraising, not really. In terms of the brand, the brand, to be honest, doesn't mean so much to the investor at the beginning, right? It is through your journey and you now being known for what you do and do efficiently that becomes your brand. So that's really what they are interested in. Are you going to do what you've said you are going to do, right? And in the execution of what you are doing, are you smart enough or resilient enough to adjust and make changes to your journey to now achieve the things that you have promised to do in the first place? So yeah, with respect to fundraising and attracting investors, not really. It's just in the execution of the business that I think that there have been mistakes, and there will be mistakes that we've learned from with respect to our branding.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot a tiny little bit because
I'm
you said that question that we wanted to ask Olumide. You said we should ask a founder, and you have actually tweeted about something like this where you tried to, there was an investor that you guys reached out to, it didn't work out. I don't know the specific details. So now that you guys have done your rebranding, did you reach out to them or do you intend to? And how do you want to go about it if you haven't already? So this is for an example for people listening. No, it's not because of me.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, the brand is not really what they are investing in. Shade it, right? The guy that asked that question, the investor is not really concerned about the brand, except when they are coming in at a Series B, right? You're an established company and you have a reputation in the market, and that reputation or something happens that can damage your reputation and you still want to attract an investor, then at that point in time, your brand can really impact how the investors perceive you or potential investors perceive you. But early stage, who knows you? We have 25,000 people on the platform. That's a drop in the ocean for the kind of business that we're trying to do. So now, are we going to, first of all, we're not even currently in the middle of since we rebranded, we haven't gone to meet any investors. We've just been doing our work and reporting our progress, right? But investors that say no to me, do I go back to them? Sometimes,
As a
yes.
Yoruba man. Okay. I thought you were going to say no, you.
If there's a strategic intent and I'm like, I need this investor, and maybe they have said, and when an investor says no to you, it's your job as a founder to know that this is a no, we will not invest no matter what, or this is a no, we will not invest at this time. You should be able to know the difference. And when that happens, and you know that you need that particular investor in your journey or on your cap table so that you can attract something. Some investors, just like Olumide said, some investors are strategic beyond the money that they invest in your company. You might need somebody on your cap table because he has access to a market or an even bigger investor and stuff like that. So if we identify that there were investors who said not at this time, like one investor in Francophone Africa, who we are now going to go back to because we have an intent to expand into Francophone Africa. So it makes sense, right? We will go back to them and say, okay, we've done the thing we said we want to do, and I think now is a good time for you to engage.
Interesting, very interesting, actually. Thank you. So, following up on this, right? Are there specific steps? So, like you said now, the same, you basically reiterated the same thing Olumide said. It's not really about the brand, it's not about what colors or blah blah you're using at this stage, right? Are there specific things that you prioritize to put in the work as opposed to, oh, I'm literally doing this to build the brand? And how much, let's say you had 100% of your time, money, effort, what slice of that cake are you giving to like making sure that everything works, doing the things you're meant to, making sure that your company is running? And what slice of that cake are you investing in? This is what the brand should look like. This is our voice. This is what we want people to think about us. This is kind of people that we want to attract as customers and as investors.
So some parts of branding are very important, right? So in fact, branding is very important no matter your stage. Especially what you want to do. If you even look at the global trend of branding now, you realize that companies get to a stage, no matter how huge they are, and they say, we're going to do a rebrand. I think the most recent one was PayPal. I've known PayPal and their brand for 20 plus years. And then they now decide that, okay, you know what, we're going to change the brand to something, right? Maybe they are trying to align to a modern or strategic narrative or whatever. And so on and so forth. Warner Bros., so many of them have done, even Instagram, and so on and so forth. So depending on what you want to do, if you are building a AI brand or cryptocurrency brand or HR brand, there is an element of branding that is required for you to be perceived the way you want to be perceived, right? So you should give that a significant amount of attention. If we're an HR brand and our primary customers are employers of labor, businesses, so we're not going to have like a completely playful brand that looks like it was built for kids, right? It's still professional stuff, really serious stuff. So our brand now has a description, or I can take you through the meaning of the 3 check marks in our symbol and all that stuff. So all of those things stand for something because you're trying to appear in a certain way to a bunch of people. But the real building of your brand is executing your initial vision, right? We are going to be the best payroll company on the continent. So 90%, once you've defined how you want to be perceived, right? 90% of your effort, or almost 100% of your effort, goes into, okay, we are building the company to do what we said it can do. Because eventually, just like the PiggyVest example, PiggyVest never compromised on the safety of your funds. Yes, and openly communicating that they are backed by a bank who is regulated by the CBN, and your deposits are insured by NDIC and all that stuff. So they did all of that communication because it's money, right? Money is serious stuff. But over time, by continuously doing the work of making your funds accessible when you need it, if there's a security breach or stuff like that, they are very open with their communication and telling you everything. So people now believe enough in the brand to say, if somebody goes and says this thing about PiggyVest, I already know it's a lie, right? Because of the work that they've done to build that brand. So today, we service maybe 200, 250 businesses, right? And one of the reasons why people come to us now is they say that we heard that your payroll is the best, so we want to move our payroll to you, right? The moment I fail on that promise to that new customer, I've undone the work of building my brand, right? So all my effort goes into ensuring that we are what we say we are, so that in the next 5 years now, when I've continuously delivered on that promise, my brand now becomes, oh, the best guy, the best company in payroll. Oh, just go and meet Pade. They'll figure it out, right? So build your visual brand or your perceptive brand, but do the work to build your actual brand that you've been known for.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work, to be honest. Like, it's not one person's job.
Yeah, startups are hard work. I mean, there's I think it was Ugochukwu who says there are 3 fresh graduates and they want to build. That's why Olumide said, kudos to you, right? You are going to see a lot of shege, bro. You are going to work 150%. You are going to work 247, 365. You are going to continue working. And sometimes you may not even see the results. It just depends on how consistent you are at working towards a meaningful vision that eventually becomes a company.
So my final question, and let me just say, as we're wrapping it up, if anyone has any questions for Seye, please drop them in the comments, and then Twinta, please get ready to ask the other questions that we have already. But my final question for you is a bit of a two-parter. So you already told us, why you decided to move from Pade, as in Pade, to PaidHR, right? But are there any specific signals? Was there a number you saw that you said, no, because of this, we are definitely going on this rebranding journey now, right? And based on those signals or that message that you got, right, how has the impact been now after the rebrand? What are you seeing that's letting you know that this has been a good decision?
Okay, maybe I may not have absolutes, right? But I just knew that a lot of our effort was going into describing what we do, right? Then the other big indicator was that we started to attract some international interest and started to consider a beyond Nigeria expansion. So, and just doing a little bit of test. So today we have businesses registered in Canada using our services for their Nigerian leg, right? And for some reason you onboard some of the Igbo people on the platform as well, and everybody just continues to call it Pade. And it just didn't flow in conversations within those communities or within those geographies. So we decided that, if we are going to do a proper expansion into these regions, which we will do in the coming year, we need to go with a name that is easy to understand, easy to relate to, that just flows better in conversations and stuff like that. So those were parts of the reasons. I have a document, and I think Ora will show it to you, of why we did a justification, and I shared it to all the investors as well. So yeah, it was just a lot of that, right? A lot of going into conversations, like, again, it's a crowded market, right? And then you bid for a job, or you are talking to a potential customer, and when it's time for a decision maker to make a decision, he just sort of says, I'm going to go with this other brand because I understand it, right? And that's very painful to us, right? Like, we will do a better job, but at some point in B2B, decisions become sentimental, and you don't want to be on the short end of that.
So my final question, I'm not lying this time. Would you have done things differently in terms of the brand name and the look and the voice and everything? Would you have done it differently from the beginning, or would you just be the same journey?
I'm generally somebody who does not. I very rarely have regrets. And the reason why I rarely have regrets is that I think a lot about my decisions before I make them, right? So I don't think we could have done it differently. The domain today cost us, it's on my board there, I don't want to say the figure, cost us a lot of money. Would I have spent that money in 2020 to buy a domain name? No. So I bought PaidHR for $12 or something, and that helped us get to this point. So it makes sense. I love it.
Awesome. Are you still keeping that domain name? I lied actually. Now I had another question. Are you still keeping the Pade domain name?
Oh yes.
Okay.
It redirects to our current domain.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for answering all my questions. So are there any questions in the chat? Okay, not that I can see. So Tunta, are you ready to go with the questions we had already? The audience questions. I think we can do 1, 3, and 4. Tunta, I can go ahead.
Hi, so one of the questions says, in your experience, how long does it take to build trust and credibility as a brand? What does it take? What should I prioritize as someone that is bootstrapping?
Building trust and credibility as a brand is going to last the lifetime of your business, right? You don't get to a point and say, oh, okay, we've built trust and credibility, so it can be damaged. GT Bank is a 30-something-year-old bank, right? About 30 years, 1991, yeah, 30-something-year-old bank. But I'm sure you guys remember, was it this year or last year, where they moved over to a new mobile app and people could not access their money and stuff like that. And that significantly impacted their brand. If there's a security breach today and somebody loses, or a few people lose some of their deposits in GT Bank, it instantly impacts their brand. Same thing if you are doing even if it's crypto, it doesn't even have to be money, right? If it is just like Canva, imagine you have a lot of work on Canva and something happens to Canva or Adobe and you lose all your saved work. That has impacted the brand. So building trust and credibility for your brand is a lifetime commitment as long as the business is alive. That was the question, right? I've answered them.
Yes, thank you. So the next question,
Oh, sorry.
rebranding.
There's a second part. What should I prioritize as someone that is bootstrapping?
Oh, yes.
Yes. What you should prioritize is acquiring customers and keeping those customers happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next question, rebranding feels like a massive investment. Like, have you seen the price of domain names now? As a pre-seed startup, we're worried about whether we'll see a good return on this. How can we justify the cost of rebranding to ourselves and our stakeholders?
When it's time to rebrand, you will know. But I think at pre-seed, don't worry about it too much, except where you have started wrongly and you are able to take account and say, okay, our growth is significantly impacted because we started off with the wrong brand, right? Then you can change it. I mean, such a mistake would be if you are trying to build a fintech startup and there's 419 inside your brand name, right? 419payments.com. That's a wrong brand name to build any fintech business. So unless there's such a mistake that significantly impacts your growth, don't worry about rebranding. What you should focus on is, how do I turn my idea into a business? And what that means is, how do I acquire customers and how do I retain those customers and how do I continuously deliver value to those customers? That's your focus. When you now get to a point where, okay, we need to scale to a certain point, and for us to do this, we need to do a rebrand, or we need to present ourselves in a certain way, then you can consider it. But for pre-seed stage, I think you just focus on turning your business into a business. Paystack ran with paystack.co for many years, right? And then nobody even remembers when they eventually acquired paystack.com, because they just felt that, okay, they had gotten to that point in their journey where we need to be defined that way. Like, okay, paystack.co looks like, okay, these guys are still figuring stuff out. But paystack.com is, this is who we are, that is our business, right? So don't worry too much about rebranding, except where it is significantly impacting your growth negatively. How do you balance your direction, your brand direction and customer demands. You know where you are going as regards payment in the workforce environment, but your audience have demands because they want to use your product. Brand direction and customer demands. This is Femi now. Why didn't you come and ask me this in my office yesterday? He works with me, don't mind him. Yeah. You have a vision, right? And for you to execute that your vision, you need to get through a particular path. You need to build out stuff. At the end of the day, it comes down to your efficiency as an operator to be able to prioritize your journey or what you build along your product's roadmap. So without giving too much away, you just need to be able to ensure that you have built out the valuable parts of your products that deliver the most value to customers, right? That they will continue to pay you for. And then you can now, once that is fully established and you are not losing customers, because businesses need revenue to stay alive, right? So if you've built out a part of your business that takes care of a key pain point for your customers and you can retain customers with that, then you can now sort of prioritize or balance out your time to build out all the other things that these other people keep requesting, so that you can now say, okay, we're delivering 100% value to our customers. But find the most painful problems, solve those first, and then you can, sort of manage the rest.
So do we have time for one more question? All right, I know we've pushed back your time by about 10 minutes. Can we take one more question, Seye? Is that okay?
Sure, one more.
Okay, Tunza, let's go in number 4.
Okay, so final question. We're in the process of rebranding, but not everyone in our founding team is fully on board with the proposed name and brand outlook. Did you face any internal resistance during the PaidHR rebrand? How did you handle it, and what steps can we take to align our team with the new vision?
I feel like speaking to that person directly. So a rebrand, especially when you have stakeholders, is not something you do because you have the most conviction, right? In my organization, unfortunately, there are people that work with me here. This rebrand that we did to PaidHR, I contemplated it last year. I spent at least 4 months on seeding the thought into the other stakeholders within the team. First of all, my co-founder. Once I realized that, okay, there was alignment here, then I went to the leaders of the team leads or heads of department. So in Pade, we treat every department like its own organization, right? So it's the company is made up of all these smaller organizations, marketing, customer success and stuff. I had this at the back of I had my scribble where I've been thinking about, okay, what are the names you can get? And I invited everybody one after the other to kind of just see the idea, even before making like any concrete actions like paying for it or whatever. I just kept on checking stuff. So when you have stakeholders, if you've seen the movie Inception, one of the things you have to be very good at is planting an idea inside somebody to the point where they believe that it is their own. You have to figure it out. So if you have not achieved alignment in all your stakeholders, don't go ahead. Because when something goes wrong, they'll blame you.
I'm very curious about Olumide's perspective here. Has he been on the other side of the table? Olumide, are you still here? Yeah, I think he may have gotten engaged with something else. Okay. So thank you so much, Seye, for sharing that. For me, as someone that is building something very tiny, very little like this, I can resonate with the last thing you said, where if everything, maybe you decide to take a decision and then everyone who's like a stakeholder in what you're doing does not agree with it, you're going to, in fact, they will just be waiting for that ball to drop. So I can understand that. Thank you so much. So now we'll get into the real meat of it. Ore is here with a deck for us. I'm very, very happy about that, Ore. So let me introduce you. Are there any final words shared that you have before we switch to Ore?
No.
Okay. So let me introduce Ore for anyone here who does not know Ore. Ore is a seasoned branding and marketing specialist with a lot of experience in building businesses and helping them define and redefine their brands, how they resonate with customers and investors alike. She is the product marketing and communications lead at PaidHR, but she's also the co-founder of TEMZI. I think a lot of people here might know TEMZI, Tech Marketers Support Initiative. I didn't even know what it stood for. I just knew TEMZI and I really like the name. So, all right, thank you so much for joining us today and for, sharing the meat of how everything happened, all the shege. Because I saw when Seye said shege, you were laughing. Some of the sheges that you went through during the process. So we're really eager to hear that.
Thank you so much, Ewalola. Thank you for having me. And I think for all of us at Pade, we're quite, what's the word to use? We're stoked to know that the rebranding, which, as you have said, showed us some shege and a lot of, Murphy's Law really came in clutch, right? Everything that could go wrong went wrong last minute. And then, for that process or the result of that process to then be used as a case study, I think it's just, we're glad to dive into what really goes into a rebrand. Yeah.
Curious, would you like to see this kind of case study, like PaidHR case study in like like Harvard Business School or something?
Absolutely,
in a positive
yes.
note.
That's the
Yeah.
That's where the bar is. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Hopefully we'll get there very soon. Okay, so you can share your screen. Do you have any questions for me before you get started?
Not a question, just to reiterate
Okay.
that what I'm sharing is the process behind the rebrand from when, Seye was thinking about it, stakeholder management, all the way to the challenges that we faced, how we're able to solve for those, and, what the outcome of all of that was.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I've not seen the deck, so I'm very excited.
It's deck that we've been making reference to since.
Yes, I'm not. Look at now. You're not making it look like it's just black and white that you did. Please, I'm excited.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to reiterate again, we're just going to dive right into, what is the process, the actuality of it when we think of rebranding, from either an old name to a new name, or a complete overhaul. For us at PaidHR, like Seye said, he had been thinking of the name change as far back as last year, right? And while the seed was sown into the minds of certain stakeholders and, just giving that time for it to take root, it was clear that something had to change. If it was a complete overhaul of the name change or like the entire brand in that moment, or if we're going to start, phase by phase, so piecemeal, taking it bit by bit, so we don't overwhelm ourselves or shock, the market, shock our audience, and also just to test out the vision and the direction that we thought a rebrand was going to take us to. So all of that had been going on, and what we said, while we're still, while the jury is out on what exactly the new name will be, right, we knew something had to change. For example, we did away with the old logo, we came in with a new logo. Our colors, some of our colors were retained, some were let go. And like Seye had said, the new logo is very important for us because we think that it captured a lot more of where we currently were at the time, and the future that we were looking towards, right? So without much ado, I would just be going right into that. So the process for us, I tried to break this down into bite-sized chunks so that it's easier to follow. But please, let's not get lost in the big grammar on the screen. So the first call was strategic analysis and name exploration, right? So there's something I like to tell Seye, like when he's thinking, when he's anxious about, okay, what are we doing? Where are we going next? What's the next milestone? I can sort of tell. So I like to call it the tinkering of Seye. So when he's in that mode, in alignment with our co-founder Lekon, about the rebrand, like I said, it was clear that something had to change and a decision needed to be made on what was the way forward. And at the time, it was agreed that, okay, let's do a change or a rebrand around what we stand for. Let's reinforce the people that we're actually out for in the market, which is, the most important resource in the workplace, the human resource. So we went ahead with the earlier rebrand, which saw us changing our logo, changing our colors, our fonts, our communication style, and everything. But now it was time to take the next plunge, which was the overhaul of the name, right? So first we had to do an audit of the old brand name to say, what are people saying out there? There's one thing for someone to come up and say, oh, I think that people are mispronouncing our name and this is affecting our perception, or it takes away from the seriousness of the brand when you mention Pade and, people are cracking jokes and with the name to say Pade or Pade Minisale, it's one thing for someone to go by word of mouth. It's another thing to have the actual data to back up what you're saying. And so for us, we did an old brand name audit where we pulled out screenshots of people doing exactly what we're not okay with, right? Which was mispronouncing the brand name and how that could affect the perception and the positioning of our brand and the product, right? It was also very critical to note that we're at the time when we wanted to expand. I feel like for most of us on the call, we understand, like, when you're building a brand, building a business, there are different growth stages, right? And for us, at the next growth stage for us, it was critical for us to just get it right from the jump. And get it right with a brand name that adequately communicated the entirety of what we wanted to be known for. So we did the audits, brainstorming sessions. There were a couple of domain examples that were shared, and it was like, okay, do we go for this? Do we go for that? And why are we going to leave any behind for us to arrive at PaidHR.com? There was also deliberation on how we wanted to write PaidHR, right? I know Seye shared a couple of samples with me, and what I was thinking at the time when he shared his justification for choosing what we currently have now, it was clear, right? It was clear what the rationale was, and so for me it was an easy buy-in. And thereafter, when we all agreed on what the new name will be, we then had to do the availability search for the domain, social media handles. Sometimes you see that maybe there's PaidHR available, while on another platform, there's Get PaidHR, or you have to add something to PaidHR. And we wanted it to be very distinct, to be as distinct as possible. So we did the domain availability search. We noted down all the options that were available. And then thereafter, we settled on PaidHR.com for the website and Get PaidHR for our social media channels. This is interesting to note is that when we went by PaidHCM, PADE-HCM, we tried our best to slot in Get Paid, to slot in the action word gets, right? But it wasn't sticking. We tried to change social handles. That wasn't working. So for us, it was like, okay, this is the time. This is the moment to own own that phrase, get paid, right? And so it was really great that we're able to lock that down. Iwalola, are you still with me? I'm on the other tab, so I'm unable to see what's
Yes,
happening.
very much still following.
Okay. All right. So stage 2 was stakeholder engagement. Most of this in terms of like upper leadership was already sorted. But then down to the team leads, down to even in your teams, the people who are like your unit heads, who are like the influencers of your teams. When you want to run with a vision, that when you sell it to those people first, they're able to, pass on the fire to other people in the team. So we did all of that and everyone was on board. We also tested in-house just to get employee feedback. Quite all right. A number of us were attached to the old name, right? Because we had found a way around it, right? And that's something with the people that I work with at Pade. We always find a way, right? So we found a way around the old name, even with the mispronunciation. We found a way to make it into a verb, to just use different what are those called in English, nouns and verbs, right? And it had stuck. It had gotten to a point where even the mispronunciation was part of the, was part of the brand. It was like an icebreaker. It was something, it was a way for us to connect with humans. And like Olumide said at the beginning, people buy from people. So I think that sort of broke the fourth wall for us, right? So there was a bit of, we're going to miss, Pade and the likes, but it was clear that what had to be done. And the more we went with PaidHR in-house, the more we refer to ourselves as such, the more is stuck. And that just speaks into the internal customer perception testing, right? We said to change things on documents, internal documents, just to get people more comfortable with the idea of the new name. Legal and channel considerations. We then went ahead to procure the domain.
All right. Sorry, just to let you know, I would really, really love if we could get through this in like 5 minutes. I just don't want to keep people beyond 4 o'clock, and I know it's my fault. I'm sorry. So
Okay.
about 5 minutes. Is that possible?
Well, I suppose I would try my best to run.
Thank you. I was actually enjoying like the in-depth, but I don't want to keep people beyond 4.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yes, we then went ahead to acquire the domain, checked the legal implications for that. Does this affect, what the name was registered with and the likes, channels name hold, and then we moved on to implementation planning. So this was, okay, how do we announce it to the market? How do we take this to the market? What's the timeline for us? What are the impeding projects that we currently have on hand, right? That was going to maybe interfere with that, or that would make us reprioritize everything that we were working on. We started to work on resources and collaterals and internal communication. And then it was time for external launch. So for us, and at the time we had started working on a website overhaul, right? So it was just, it was perfect. It was the perfect time to announce the new website with the new name, because I was also very concerned about announcing things in chunks. So we announced, okay, we have a new website, and then you announce your new name. And we had our reports that was coming up almost immediately after that. So it was great that we're able to do that together. We also ran a couple of PR media interviews and stories around what the new name was, what the direction the new name was taking us towards, and also communicated this with our customers. And thereafter, we just went into monitoring mode to monitor, first off, is our website still working as it's meant to be, because we had to redirect from paidhcm.com to paidhr.com. Then there were issues with www versus if you just typed in paidhr.com at once. So yes, it's not a lot of slides. So challenges faced while we were, rebranding. There was a threat to our main awareness channel. So the night before we're going to switch everything out, in fact, we had switched things out, right? And we're really banking on no one going on Twitter or Instagram to go and tag us, to start something that could then draw attention to our handle, to the change in handle, right? But everything that could go wrong went wrong. Someone did Sunday night, tagged us, and I think that spiked a bit of anxiety, like, okay, do we change back? And I made a call for us to change back. But unfortunately, there was a Twitter, what's it called? A fine detail, right, that Twitter does its best to hide. So we had to wait for 3 days for us to be able to change back to get PaidHR. And I was just very apprehensive about doing a name rebrand with your major awareness channel not changing to the new name. And I did research. I didn't think like it had been done before. We had changed everything back end in the product. So even me going back to Lakon to say, oh, this is the challenge that we're facing, it was like the product itself had changed. So we just had to go forward. And yes, we also had issues with clashing to-dos. Like I mentioned earlier, there were projects that were ongoing. And so we had to just look for a way to reprioritize everything, ad hoc cross-departmental request. So we have a designer, and of course, there were requests coming in from other departments. So we had to, draw up a communication plan to solve for this. URL matters. I think I'd mentioned the redirect situation from one domain name to the other. SEO concern, that also feeds into the URL matters, because we knew that our SEO efforts, right, was going to take a huge plunge. And so we were projecting, okay, how bad would that be? How long will it take us to, will I say, resurrect? So yes, solutions implemented. The weights, we had to do the weights. There was nothing else to be done. And just to mention to like anyone who's in marketing on the call, at the end of the day, you have to just ask yourself, is this something that I can do? Is it within my power? If it's not within my power, then just have to cross your legs and hope for, the best outcome that you wanted. So at that moment, all we had to do was just wait and hope that it wasn't longer, and hope that there were no other surprising flags that would come up from X. Reprioritizing to-dos. So yes, we had to bite the bullet on some ongoing projects to say this would have to take a back seat. Same thing with cross-departmental request. Everyone had to understand that this was something that had to be done and had to be done well. And so we just had to reprioritize to-dos across the board. Okay, so case study of Lemfi. I picked Lemfi because their rebrand journey is similar to ours, because they had last year in January, they had done the rebrand of like their colors, the logo and the likes, and the one that happened in May was then around the name, right? They chose the name Lemfi, which was clearly derived from lemonade, the lem in lemonade, and the fee in finance. And so they, in that way, still solved for a bit of familiarity, right? Not moving entirely away from what they were already known for or known as. They developed new visual identity while maintaining a connection to the original brand, just as I said earlier. It also helped them, they had a clearer brand differentiation in the crowded fintech market. I think fintech is one of the most crowded space. So doing that helped them stand out even better. It also helped them maintain brand equity while establishing a distinct identity. So that's a huge risk that brands tend to take on, the fact that you can either lose the brand equity that you've built prior to your rebrand, or find a way to maintain it, leverage on it, and use it to run in the new direction. So how do you know this was successful? How do you know you went in the right direction? How do you know that all the tinkering, with leadership and the internal buy-in, how do you know everything worked out? The first is brand awareness, social media mentions. Do you have enough coverage that you've rebranded? And then what are people saying about the rebrand, right? What's the search volume for the new brand terms? Now, your metrics can be measured either immediately after the rebrand. There are some that, the context works for when you just announced it. Some are, you have to monitor over a period of time, say a month, 2 months, or 3 months for that quarter, right? And then SEO rise. So we were also monitoring articles that had taken a hit. Where did they take a hit to, and how are they rising on the search engine results page? Then brand perception. What are people really saying about the name change? Like I said earlier, we had found a way to connect to it. And when we announced the rebrand, we could tell that the audience had also found a way to connect to Pade, right? But they were so glad that the name change was happening. I've gone ahead to attach some screenshots, which I'll share after this slide. So yes, your customer sentiment analysis is very, very important. Are they on board? Sometimes in the immediate, they are not on board. It takes a lot more work for you to get the message across to them. But within the timeline that you have set for yourself, is perception changing, or are people still stuck in the past? And what's that conversion? Does your rebrand get people curious enough to want to know more about you? Are they visiting your websites live in that moment? Are you tracking the live website traffic at the time? What kind of pages are they visiting? At Pade, we call them our money pages. So is it a certain feature that that you're positioning for in the market? For us, it was payroll, right? Which is why we're able to outline the paid parts of our name, properly as a standalone. So are people visiting our payroll landing pages? Are they visiting our demo page? Are they visiting our pricing pages? So those are important metrics that you want to track. And so here are some of the screenshots that just helped us judge or measure the audience perception. So here someone says, I'm so glad they are doing this because I initially thought it was Pade. Great name change. It easily boosts recall and allows for better clarity. Going to miss the Pade arguments, but yes, at least people will no longer mispronounce the name. PaidHR to the moon. So yes, it was great that even though people were attached to the previous name, they could see reasons for us to change and morph into this new identity that is also tied greatly beyond our name being mispronounced. PaidHR also just centralizes us and positions us better for the good work or the great things that we're releasing in the coming future. So yes.
So exciting. I really like how you took us through this step by step. One thing I actually hadn't considered was the legal implications, because that's true. You're registered with one name, I imagine. I wonder how this impacts that. I imagine how much back and forth had to happen with your legal team, or if you're consulting with anyone out there. Were there any things that took you by surprise, in the whole process, and you're like, which one is this again? Apart from the one that happened the night before, which I feel like those kind of things just always happen. But was there any other thing that took you by surprise and you're like, I didn't even imagine this was something that we had to consider?
I would have to come back to that, really.
That just
Because
shows that you've experienced everything. There's no surprise for you.
Well, earlier in the year, we had done like a test, right? We had done a portion of the rebrand. So we had tested the waters, we had taken learnings from that, so like it's what to expect. And Seye messaged me that Sunday to say, I think we should do this night. I'm just like, okay, let's get it rolling. And what happened. And I was just like, okay, how do we where is it heard of? Change your name, but there's a channel where your old name remains. And we just thought to, put the caveats to that. Yeah.
Okay, so do you think the I guess piecemeal approach you took in terms of doing it partially a few months before, do you think that helped? So like you said, you did some tests and all that. Do you think that helped with understanding and scoping out what this process would look like?
Yes, absolutely. It also helped our customers and our audience not having a lot to swallow at once, right? So the first rebrand was more about our story, what we stood for, where we were going, our vision. And we know that in the past we had, people call us the people platform, but okay, why exactly are you called the people platform? If you see our logo on the screen, you have check marks and the circle around it. Each check mark stands for, one stands for people at work, another stands for place of work, another stands for pay from work. So we know that, okay, payroll, which is something where, a lot of people know us for, especially in the markets that matters. They know us that, okay, our payroll service is, the best out there. Allow me to brag. So yes, pay from work, the people that we're solving for, African workers, ensuring that we make work way more easier for them. And whatever that looks like, right, we're smack in there. And the place of work, workplace, ensuring that your processes are streamlined better, people are able to access added benefits, from their phone in a very convenient way, and just doing that in the world of work and solving for fulfillment. So it helped us learn. It helped our audience swallow in bits, in ways that we could ensure that, okay, this would resonate, and then we move them to the next level. So yes,
very interesting. I think this is something that if you're not experienced, you can't handle this. So I'm really glad that you walked us through that journey, and I'm hoping that for people listening, they can find value in this. They can have this step-by-step approach to help them with their own journey. There is one question I'd like to ask, based that was shared with us from the audience. Tunta, are you ready to go? We can just take that question for. And then we'll just get to the last speaker, that's Sydnye Sam. Okay, Tunta, please let's take the last question for.
Okay, so the question is, my organization operates in a somewhat stagnant or boring industry, investment banking. How can we make our brand stand out without making it feel forced or out of touch with the markets we're in?
Seye had a reaction to that.
Seye has my organization operates in a somewhat stagnant or boring industry. How can we make our brand stand out without making it feel forced or out of touch with the markets we're in? It's also important to note that branding starts from the products, right? It starts from your services. If your service is a product, then it starts from there. It's beyond the name. It's beyond, oh, this is our colors, this is how we speak. Being known for an exceptional service is branding, is part of branding. And if you operate in an industry, like investment banking, it could be that your way in is to find a differentiator in your services or how you cater to your customers, right? It could be that that's the branding, that's how you want to position for in a way that doesn't, make you stand out differently or out of touch or out of place within like the strict guidelines of investment banking. Sometimes maybe what you need is to actually stand out. If it depends on who you're trying to speak to. I know that a lot of investment, we say old money, but we have young millennials on the rise right now who is catering to them. So it could be that your approach, if you don't want to like do an overhaul for the entire company, what about a subsidiary? Have you thought about creating, a subsidiary from, which is what we consider some of our traditional banks, they do these days. So you have the big name that our mothers and the mothers of our mothers are used to, but you find that those entities these days carve out subsidiaries that speak to the age and time that we're at now. Those subsidiaries enables them to brand as they want, right? That doesn't make them look out of touch, but also speak to the new markets that they're trying to attract. So that could be a way for you to, revamp how you speak, how you come across without making it feel forced or without, disrupting something that has worked for a long while.
Interesting. I wish the person who asked the question, I wish I could identify them so in case they had a follow-up question. But shared, do you have a comment on that as well?
At all. I was just surprised that investment banking can be referred to as stagnant or boring. That's where we want to be. There's a lot of money in the industry and he's describing it as boring. I like boring.
Boring money, Abi. That's the best money.
Yeah. I mean, just to add an actual response as well. At the end of the day, just like I already said, your brand is what you define it to be. If your product is already understood and you know what you're doing, you can now decide based on whatever is driving your why, right? And say, okay, this is how we're going to appear. When GT Bank, and this is the second time I'm mentioning them, when they decided to disrupt banking a little bit and came from a differentiated branding standpoint. They back in the 90s, late 90s and mid 2000s, they targeted young guys, made their services easy for those guys to relate with. And we have grown with the bank to the 35 and 40-year-olds now who cannot do without using GT Bank. So it all depends on what you want to do and then decide to stand out. Merci beaucoup.
That's true, actually. So that person should go and study the GT Bank framework. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ore. I'm really grateful. Me personally, I had a lot of questions for you, but unfortunately, the time will not permit me to ask them. Do you have any final words that you want to share before we move on to Sydnye?
No final words. I just was thinking if there was another way for me to still capture those questions and respond to people after.
Oh yeah, that would be really great. Actually, can I share them with you and maybe you can share a written response and I can share that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay? All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Sunta, please can you remind me about that in case I forget? Awesome. So now to the people, the exceptionally creative. I don't know. I really look up to like creative people like Sydnye. So those people who actually conceptualize all the Seye tinkering, as already described it. So those people who like put down their hands in their Adobe Illustrator or on paper and then figure out how things will look. So that's Sydney's. Sydnye, you're muted if you wanted to speak, but can I go ahead and introduce you?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so Sydnye is the founder and creative director of Workspace Global. It's a full-service creative agency that helps startups, corporations, nonprofits, all kinds of businesses build compelling brands through design and digital innovation. Sydnye personally has worked with dozens of companies across Africa and beyond, alongside his team. And they've helped these businesses create memorable brand experiences that help them connect with their target audience. He's also helped us personally, but that's something that's still a little bit under wraps, and we will share in a few weeks. But for now, I'd love for Sydnye to talk to us about Workspace Global, what Workspace Global does, and what we will be sharing with our community here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Personally, I've really enjoyed listening to some of the heavy hitters in the African ecosystem. So Seye, I've really enjoyed listening to every one of you. I will keep this quick because I know we have been on the call quite a bit. I'll start off a little bit with my tips regarding everything that has been shared, and then I will go into talking about Workspace. So amidst everything that has been shared by the previous speakers, there were a few things that I wanted to pull out. Number one, we all know branding is about perception, fundraising is about storytelling. So you need to really understand that. I went through a whole phase during our pivot as a company from an agency to a tech business. I'll tell you about that in a second. And I remember I was basically bombarded with the whole idea of how fundraising should be done, right? But when you recognize that fundraising is storytelling, you also then recognize that your own a lot of it also has to do with your subjective journey and the circumstances around that in terms of who you're speaking to and the relationships you're creating. So that's something to really think about, right? Branding is perception, fundraising is storytelling, okay? We've all gone into a little bit about investor psychology. I know the first speaker really shared a lot regarding that, but I just wanted to go through a few tips. Most investors are looking for a reason not to invest, not the other way around. So that is actually why branding and the way you package yourself is also quite important in the fundraising process. For example, you might have the best business idea. If your deck and your website and stuff have typos, has issues that show that you lack attention to detail, you'd be surprised that that is the reason why somebody will not want to pursue a second conversation with you, right? Investors listen to multiple pitches, hundreds of pitches all the time. So it's really important to stand out, which is why you need to look at your at differentiating yourself. They're looking to feel formal, okay? We all know that they want to feel like you are the one thing that if they don't invest in you right now, they've really missed the boat regarding that. And I love what the first speaker indicated, that it is an equal value transaction, right? So you are bringing yourself to the table. The investor is also gaining something. They're not doing you a favor. So it's important for you to present yourself in a way that shows that you know what you're about, and they're also getting value from that. So I'll stop there just really quickly, because like there are other factors, like they want to be proud to have you in their portfolio, especially VCs. So the way you show yourself as a brand is also quite important for them. And they also care about how the team presents itself, right? They've given you their money. How do you show up at conferences? All of that stuff. Stages of the relationship to look at, they care about what happens before they meet you, when they meet you, and after they meet you. So these are the things to think about regarding your branding. And the last thing I will say to close off my little session before I jump into my company is that you are trying to communicate very clearly within a short time. And that is something to think about. It's not just about settings and the way you package yourself, but also really being able to shorten your message in a way that is compelling, but it's still very brief, for people to be able to take in and want to have a second conversation. I have a lot more to add, but, we'll just move on to introducing the company that is Workspace. So I'll quickly share my slides just for us to talk it through. So Workspace started from my personal journey as an entrepreneur. My first business failed, actually. It was quite viral for the first 4 years. So people like Mr. Easy and Kitty came from my first business because I used to put underground artists on stage and promote them on different platforms, right? But what mainly, I didn't have anybody who could talk me through my branding, and I realized that it's not just about the people who help me, but that access is a huge issue. In Africa, we have a lot of talent, right? But think about how many freelancers you have to go through before you find the right person, okay? Where do you go and find them? How do you know even when you found them that they are, even if they are good, are they going to be available to work work with you consistently in the way that you need them to be, because they have kids, they have families, there are a lot of things that happen regarding that. So we decided to pivot and build a tech platform that connects creative and startups to top creative teams in Africa. Okay, that's just generally what we do at Workspace. It helps you to build, brand, and scale without the stress. You can ditch the headaches of agencies, because agencies are quite expensive, even though they're very good in relation to everything. Freelancers can be stressful. Designing yourself, not everybody is very good at that, right? And if you've hired people in-house, they are limited. Your HR teams need your designers. Your marketing team needs your designers. Your impact team needs your designers. The board meeting needs your designers. There are a lot of things that are happening and a lot of pressure on your in-house teams as well. And when things are not happening, the in-house people are also just sitting down doing nothing. So we realized that we needed a flexible solution for startups that allows them to create, to go for endless creatives, right? So they just make creative requests as and when, cancel anytime, so that there's that kind of flexibility, give you everything you need in one place, okay? But that also allows you to just ask for what you need and not worry about the management. Somebody will handle it from end to end. So that's what our platform is about. And it's really changing the game as to how startups access creative. We can do everything brand for you. So from websites, branding, marketing materials, your decks, apps, whatever it is that you need, we're able to support you with that, because we have about a few hundreds of people in our network that are delivering these services for you. How it works, you simply choose a plan, you subscribe, you share a vision, and then you go into the platform to start collaborating. Very, very simple. So within literally 1 hour or just about 30 minutes, you should be fully set up, access your team, and be able to start working. And we deliver everything within 3 days. Okay, so just to give you a showcase of the kind of work that you can expect. And we can make endless requests. You can revise until you're happy. And these are some of the subscription prices. I know in Africa, a lot of us might be struggling with the cost associated with some of these subscriptions. So we have unique subscription prices for African startups to make it more accessible for our startups, and we can discuss some of those things as well. So I'm not going to go too much into detail regarding everything here, but it's just really an amazing platform that changes the way you get access to your branding. You can forget about the freelancer stress, forget about the agencies. If you needed something very urgently for your meeting next week, you need to revamp your websites, things like that, you're able to just make that request. You have one project manager, so one person you're speaking to. You never really speak to the people who actually do the work unless you want to. But the idea is that you're a founder, you're supposed to be busy building your startup, so that's our idea. We also give you access to all the editable files. So unlike other platforms, we believe that you should have access to everything, and you can tell us what you want us to build in. So it's good for you. If you want it in Canva, we'll build in Canva. If you want it in Adobe, we'll build it in Adobe for you. Whatever it is, and we'll give it to you. And we do a quality guarantee. So we ensure that everything you are happy with what you have, until we will keep revising until that's the case. So that's just a little bit about Workspace. I'll pass it back on to my partner, Iwalola, to share what we are offering to everybody on this call today, just to be able to get you started on improving your brand during your fundraising journey. Okay, so as Iwalola is talking, I'll just show some case studies as well. So Iwalola, I'm passing it over to you. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for keeping that short and sweet and still communicating everything. And this deck looks really nice as well. It looks really nice. It looks like I have to come to you for our own deck as well, Sydnye. So just to like he said, because we're partnering with Workspace Global, they will be offering all the people in this webinar right now and all our listeners of the podcast, up to 30 people. They've given us 30 discount codes. They'll be offering us a free trial of their services up to $50. So you can use that for your pitch deck or your product deck, your social media graphics, banner designs, and things like that. There's also room if you have maybe a bigger project. Sydney's team is very willing to have that conversation with you. So yeah, you get access to a team for 1 week for free. Awesome. Thank you very much, Sydnye. At this point, does anyone have any questions? If not, I would just like to take maybe one of the questions that we got for you already, Sydnye. Let me see.
Sounds good.
Okay. Twitter, are you still there? We can just take one of the questions. Okay, maybe question 4.
Hi, so the question is, we want our branding to feel polished and mature, especially as we are gearing up for investor presentations. How can we make sure our creative assets reflect a more established brand rather than looking so startup?
That's a very good question. I usually would say, firstly, I care about the kind my investor thesis. So when I look at who the people I'm trying to reach out to in terms of investment, check out their portfolio to see what their brand, the brands in their portfolio look like. Usually, what makes a startup have a very clear and clean branding is when they say less. It's really more about your message, not even just about the visuals, but your message, right? When you're able to say very little to communicate exactly what you do, how you do it, and why it is better than what is in the world. So I'd really encourage a strong refinement of the value proposition and trying to bring that into very simple messaging prompts so that when you put it together on your website, for example, somebody can glance through your website within 3 minutes and completely understand what you're looking to say. Even if your website is simply black and white text and that is your brand feel, once it has that clarity and the imagery you select reflects the emotion that you're trying to have behind your value proposition. So a sense of confidence, a sense of wonder, a sense of adventure. If you're able to mirror those two, clean and clear messaging and very good imagery and visuals, right, that do less, not more, I think you'd be able to nail your brand. So if you look at some of the biggest companies in the world, I was even looking at Warren Buffett's website. It's horrible, 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 horrible. But he just shares about 2 paragraphs of what exactly he does. It goes straight to the point and it works, right? So just do less, not more, and try to really get your message and your essence through in very simple words. That's what I would recommend. Thanks.
Awesome. Now I have to go and look at that Warren Buffett's website. I'm surprised. Okay, so thank you so much for your time to everyone here. I know we're basically about 10 minutes over time. I think I would like to round up here. There are a lot more questions for you, actually, Sydney. I think people wanted you to redesign their pitch decks on this call, but that's not possible. That's not possible. So final words from Seye, Olumide. Could we take it in, and I'm not sure which, can we take it in the same order as we had the speaker? So Olumide, do you have any final words? Was there anything that struck you from the conversations already that you want to just highlight? I have a feeling he might be engaged in another meeting or something. Okay, so I'll just pass the baton to you, Seye, if you're still there.
Nothing to say, guys. It has been a very great session. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for the questions as well. So it was good that you did this. Bye.
Thank you very much, Seye. And all right, do you have any final words, anything that struck you in the course of the conversation?
I think if we're living here with anything, it will be to remember that people buy from people, and so just approach everything from there.
Yeah, that actually really resounds for me. Like, people buy from people, so we need to like stop thinking about things from this like we're a third party looking at ourselves, like really humanize ourselves. I think that's something that's going to stick with me from this conversation. Thank you so much. So for everyone here, for everyone who registered, you receive an email from us letting you know the next steps to apply the discount code that we've been given for your free trial. Are there any final questions from the audience here? Is there anything? If there's anything, you can just raise your hands, throw it out now. None. Okay. Sydney, did you still have one final thing to say?
Well, no, all good. I think this has been really good. I think, yeah, it's been really good. People buy from people is probably one of the things that resonates the most. The fact that you are already working on your brand. It's not some very mysterious science. Just do better with the people that you interact with and your audience, and I think you should be good. So, yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So look out for an email from us later today with the details of the discount code for the free trial, and then follow us on social media, connect with us. If you still have any questions, send us a DM and we will strong arm all the speakers here to answer some of those questions. Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.